Welcome to our Acappella, A Caring People podcast. We've got my co-host, Captain Brian Levy with Manchester Place and Cambridge Caregivers. We also have a very special guest, Dr. Shaneka Baylor. She is a pharmacist. She is a national speaker. She's a motivational speaker and the owner of Chefs for Seniors. Welcome, Dr. Baylor, to our show.
Thank you, Joe, for having me.
How are you today?
I'm doing good on this kind of cloudy day today.
I know, and we are talking about nutrition and the elderly.
Yes.
That's right. Dr. Baylor, tell me about your path from pharmacist to senior chef.
Okay, so I've been a pharmacist for 12 years now. In the last 6 years, I've been what you consider a clinical pharmacist. So I worked with a lot of seniors who had chronic illnesses, diabetes, high blood pressure, and actually would help adjust medications under a protocol. So over the last maybe 2 or 3 years, I just kind of started realizing that one of the big issues was that it was the food. You know, we have the diabetes, we have the hypertension. What is causing that, and why can't we get it under control? So, I started delving more into that and just really found a passion for wanting to educate seniors and others about how to bridge that gap and make them healthier. So that was really how it got started.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm from Louisiana, and we Louisianans love to eat.
Yeah.
We love carbs, we love sugar, we love alcohol. And one thing when I was preparing for this podcast today, I did learn that 25% of seniors that are 65 and older are diabetic. Mm-hmm. So tell me, why is this happening? Tell me what's going on.
There's a lot of different things. Some of it is that, as you age, your taste preferences change. So you like sweeter things, you like carb, you like heavy. That's how you grew up. So that's what you're used to. You grew up with rice and beans and pastas. So that's what you cook. Some of it is that, you don't move as much as you used to when as you get older. Then there's just a lot of miseducation about what's healthy and what's not. What's the right portion, what's not. So, when you start adding all that together, your plate becomes this where it should be 50% vegetables and then a quarter of a protein and a quarter of a starch. You're getting 50% starch, maybe 50% meat or protein, or maybe there's only a little bit of vegetables. So it gets reversed, you slow down, all of those things start happening, and it contributes to the diabetes.
Mm-hmm. Well, and my husband is one of those. He is a meat eater. He loves meat. And, I know that nutritional experts say have a palm size of your meat portion. And that is probably a fifth of the amount of meat that my husband would prefer to consume when we have meals.
Right.
It's just a fact.
Yeah.
We're Texans. We love protein. We love our beef.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what are some of the tools and tactics you use to incorporate healthy food into a diet where somebody really isn't interested in eating broccoli or a salad?
Okay. So some of the things that I can do for those who I'm not preparing meals for, when I talk to them, I'll just talk to them about introducing something new at the beginning. So maybe I really like cauliflower. So I use a lot of cauliflower rice or mashed cauliflower. So I'll tell them take 50% of the rice and 50% cauliflower rice. And so that way they can get used to the taste and the texture, and then they begin to like it. So that's one way to introduce some vegetables. Another thing, if you eat a meatloaf or some of those other casserole dishes, just add vegetables to those dishes. And then that way you can you don't taste the vegetables as much, because people are like, oh, I don't like vegetables. I don't like the way they taste. It's kind of like when you're older and you're a kid. It's the same thing,
I remember when my kids were little, we would eat asparagus at dinner, but we wouldn't let the kids have any. And after a few times of that, it was like, oh no, we're going to have some, and now it's our favorite. And to this day, the kids love
And that's
asparagus.
why, and you think about Brussels sprouts.
Right.
I don't want that Brussels, but that's actually one of my favorite vegetables.
Always want what you can't have, right?
What you can't have. So that's a good way to introduce it.
Elderly people love sweets. Talk about that. Their taste buds fade?
Yes, so your taste buds change, and they still, for whatever reason, have that perception of sweet. So So my grandmother is 94. You can give her a sweet anything, anytime. And she's like, oh, can I have that? And we're like, no, you need to eat. But yeah, so that always tastes good to them, where some of those other foods just don't have a taste. And they also don't think they're hungry anymore. So sometimes, because you're not moving, you're sedentary, you're just like, okay. And if I put food in front of you, you might eat it. But if you put something sweet, it's that appetizing idea, and I just want to go for the sweets all the time.
Right.
So what do you feel about, I know that we want to cut out the sugar, and I love sugar too. So how do you feel about the saccharin, the low sugar or those sugar-free that add the artificial, the Splenda? Is that healthy? Is that a healthy choice? What are your thoughts on that?
So especially for my diabetic patients, what I would tell them, in moderation, it's okay. So if you have a diet cola, once a week or a couple times a week, something like that, it's not really going to hurt you. But I also had patients that if they drank too much of it or ate too many, sugar-free foods, it still affected their blood sugar. So, that's when we have to talk about, do you check your blood sugars? Because you need to know, because everybody's affected different. Some people have a tendency with the saccharin or the equal, they all handle it differently. I do like stevia. I will recommend it because it's a more natural sweetener for people to use, but I say in moderation. I don't tell anybody to just go and eat everything that's sugar-free, because again, there's a lot of other things that are in those foods that still can contribute to making the diabetes worse.
So tell me about, why did you get into Chefs for Seniors? Let's talk about Chefs for Seniors and your business.
Yes. So again, I actually I lost about 30 pounds. And I started cooking for some of my coworkers too, and really found a love for the meal planning. And so, like I was telling Captain Brian earlier, just that that combination of wanting my seniors to be healthier, and then seeing how it was helping my coworkers, really kind of tick something in me that I didn't know. I always liked to bake as a kid, so baking was always a thing. I didn't know that cooking was a passion. And as I was trying to decide where I was going next, what I was going to do next, I found the Chefs for Seniors opportunity. My mom actually had a friend that was using the franchise in Houston. And I was like, I think this is exactly what I want to do. And there we go. I, called, found out the information, and, we met with each other, and here we are a year later. I'm into the franchise and just enjoying it every day.
So do you go to homes and help? Tell me what you do when you meet with
clients do you serve? Yeah.
So our general population is going to be a senior. Now, that can be 60 up, 65 up, because, the definitions change of what a senior is. But, if you're a working senior and maybe you just don't have time to cook, or, maybe you are now at home and you're wanting to stay at home, but you can't cook like you used to, and that's the only thing keeping you from staying home, we do that. And then we have couples who are just, older and they don't want to cook anymore. So, that's the biggest population. Of course, family members, if they're either in town or away and they're looking for a service for their family members to come and cook for them, they will reach out to us too.
How do you get started with your clients? Do you ask them for a list of their favorite foods, dietary constraints?
We actually go in and do a consultation. So we'll do an in-home consultation that's free of charge. We'll sit down, we'll ask them about their dietary preferences. We have a list of I think there's about 50 foods on there. If they like it, don't like it, tried it, never tried it, willing to try it. We ask them, are you diabetic? Do you have high blood pressure? So that we can make sure when we're suggesting options for them that we're doing the ones that are good for their lifestyle. We have a more customized service. So we have a couple clients that have renal issues, and so they need a low phosphorus diet, so we can do those kind of things. But that's what that in-home consultation is. So we sit down, and then if they agree and we agree, we go in and we actually look at their pantries. We see what's already in there, so that we're not purchasing things they already have.
Right.
Make sure that all their appliances work, that we're have enough space in there, because we actually come in with our own, we call it a toolbox. So we come in with all our own pots, pans, everything. Wow. So they don't have to worry about us using any of their utensils vegetables when we're in the home. We grocery shop right before the service, so they're always getting the fresh produce, and we only buy what we need. So.
And when you're prepping at someone's house, do you how many meals in advance can you make?
So we wait, it's a week's worth of meals. So depending on what they select for that week, it can be anywhere from 10 to 12, maybe 10 to 14 options. So if they're choosing heavier like casserole meals, that's going to make 4 servings. But if they're doing something like a fish dish, that usually makes about 2 servings.
Right.
So.
And in this process, do you actually consult with them and talk to them about what they're eating and why to eat certain things and why not?
So we do a little bit because all of the franchisees don't have a nutrition background. We try to separate it, but I'll have conversation with the clients if they ask me a question.
You're not going to lecture them like you're the mom,
exactly.
but hey, yeah.
Exactly. And then, if they have a dietitian or, their physician is wanting them on a special, then they can connect us and we can talk to their, healthcare provider also to make sure we're getting what they need.
Sure.
And Dr. Baylor, yes. I know with your pharmacy background, the meds have to play a role. So do you look at the meds they're taking, and with that introduction and when you're asking food choices, do you talk about their meds as well?
No, I don't, because again, it's because of the franchise and the health. But I do have a consulting on the side. So if that is something that somebody wants apart from the chefs for seniors, I will still work with them to help them get a better understanding, see if we can do something to get them off some of their medications or what they need to talk to their physicians about.
Well, and Brian, we were talking about this morning, we can have a client that we take on at Caring People that comes home from the hospital and they have 6 pages of medication.
Yes. Right.
Yes.
The families don't even know what they're taking. Just talk about that. Or as a pharmacist, when you're filling those meds when somebody goes home from the hospital, just switching gears a little bit, do you sometimes say, "Whoa, doc, let's
analyze this situation"?
Need all these meds.
Yeah.
Tell me your thoughts on that.
So, being a pharmacist for 12 years, I've worked a little bit of everywhere. So I've worked at an LTAC. So, I have worked at a rehab as a pharmacist, and then, on the outpatient clinical side. So seeing all of those things, that list, it can be monstrous.
I know.
Sometimes, and especially if they went from the hospital to the LTAC to the rehab to the, and things get missed or in
duplicated.
between or duplicated, or my favorite, they were on lisinopril at home, but the hospital doesn't have that blood pressure medicine, so it's the same kind,
right?
But it's a different name, and so then they're going home with all of these. So, unfortunately, depending on where the senior is coming from, we can't always have that conversation with them because they may not know.
Right.
And depending on the home health that they have, that's going to be another thing. So if they have a family member, my thing is I always tell everybody, if you're taking care of a loved one, have a list of all of their medications before they go in the hospital. Because that way you're going to know and be able to check that based on when they get out. And then, I always like to sit down and tell them, within 2 weeks, call your doctor, because you need to know, do I still need to take this or not? And I know that, certain hospitals are better now with pharmacists with transitions of care and doing discharge planning. So they will go in, before your discharge and kind of go, okay, this is what you were taking at home. Stop this, take this. But it still doesn't always happen.
So at Cambridge Caregivers, we get asked often,
yes,
will you do light meal prep for mom? Talk to me about light meal prep. If you had a caregiver like ours going into someone's home, what would you recommend as light meal prep? What would you have our caregivers make that can stay in the fridge for a day or two?
Okay.
That's real simple.
So light meal prep, sometimes, sandwiches are okay. I'm not a fan of a lot of bread because, again, we were talking about diabetes earlier,
right.
And, it can be too much sugar, especially if they're not moving around a lot. If they do eat breakfast, like a small thing of oatmeal is always good. It still has fiber, and all those things that kind of get them full. Even soups, as you're thinking about things like that, like vegetable soups that it's more hearty, but it's not heavy. so they'll tend to eat more of that. I think those are good things for like light meal prep.
Right.
And then, maybe like a meatloaf or a small casserole that still has the vegetables in it. So then that way you're not having to force a plate of,
Here's your broccoli, eat your broccoli.
And
right,
it looks
right.
like all these things on that plate, and they're like, I don't want that. So you can still do little casseroles and things like that. And then serve them on saucers, because, if you're serving it on the big plate, it looks like it's a lot of food.
That's great.
So you should use a saucer.
Well, and one thing, my mother was in a group home, and when she got to the point she was bedbound and couldn't feed herself, one day they came in and it looked like gruel.
Goulash.
It was
Yeah.
gray, mixed together. I don't know what it was. And I said, what are you serving my mother?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's important to ask,
Yeah.
and you should get an answer
Right.
to, so you want to know. And it's not, to these adult children that are afraid to ask, that don't want to upset the apple cart. Ask the questions.
Absolutely.
What is my mom getting? Okay, yes, she's on a pureed diet. What is being pureed? Another question I have, what are your thoughts on Ensure? And just honest
Question,
opinion,
Joe. Open that can of
do
worms.
you feel like Ensure will sustain life? What are your thoughts on Ensure?
So I'm not the biggest fan.
And because?
Yeah, because we need all of the food groups. So, as far as if I can get somebody to eat 25 to 50% and then you're just using that as a supplement, that's one thing. But for, your older client or your patient to just be drinking Boost or Ensure all day, that's not going to get it. I'd almost rather them, and I don't necessarily big on milk, but even a non-dairy milk, and put some peanut butter in there, and get your proteins and things that kind of way. You can make a smoothie of that. You can put some vegetables in there and, put maybe a hint of stevia, and that way they're still getting a shake. They're getting more of the nutrition, the real vitamins and minerals, as opposed to just being in the Boost or something.
Absolutely. We actually bought bullets, the
bullets.
for all of our care homes, and the residents love smoothies.
Yeah.
So,
So for someone that doesn't like vegetables, but needs the vegetables, give me a quick recipe on a great Ensure substitute smoothie.
Oh goodness! So I would say a non-dairy milk,
like
either
Silk.
almond milk or silk or soy. Yeah, silk or soy, depending on what kind of, if they have an allergy or not. So you could do almond, or you could do soy, and then you could add a spinach or kale. And so what I do first is I tell people, take about a fourth of the milk that you're going to use and blend it up real good first, so that way your kale or your spinach gets all the way broken down, and then they won't taste it or see it as much. Add an apple or a banana, half of a banana, not a whole banana, or half of an apple, and then maybe some berries. And then if they like peanut butter, you can add that, or almond butter.
I'm not a big fan of kale and all this healthy stuff. I'll tell you, we have a colleague at the office, and he makes a smoothie every day. And all the spinach and crazy lettuce and blueberries and flaxseed and soy milk. I mean, it looks awful. I mean, it's nauseating.
Yeah.
And I took a sip the other day, and I have to admit, it was really good.
Yeah.
Really?
It was really, and I don't eat that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, okay,
was excellent.
so
So if I can eat it, anybody,
So let me ask you this. So you've got your budget. People think, oh, it's going to cost so much. You've got your budget. Is it about the same cost as an Ensure to buy all those products? Or are you spending a little more? Are you spending less? What is your thought on
I
that?
don't even know. I don't think I even know how much an Ensure is.
I'll
these
answer
days.
that. Ensure is expensive.
It's very
really expensive.
Yeah, I was about to say, I haven't bought, or worked with anybody eating or drinking that in a while. So I would probably say to buy the groceries that they need for a week's worth of meals, it's probably at least the same or maybe a little less, depending on how much a case of Ensure, is running.
So let me ask this question, and I think, Brian, you could answer this better, because you do have group homes. And if somebody is moving their loved one into a group home or assisted living, is it okay to ask for a special diet?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no reason that, you have to understand, our care homes, we have 8 private suites, okay? So 8 residents, 4-to-1 ratio. So all of our interactions with our residents are one-on-one, including meals. We ask them when they move in, what are your favorite meals? What are your favorite snacks? And we try to incorporate that into all of, 4 square meals a day, 3 squares of meals a day. But it all goes down to what their likes are and how we can incorporate it. And if they don't like what's on the menu, there's always food in the house. We can make something else. It doesn't have to be what's being served.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would always, with my mother, she loved Jamba Juice, and I got her the greens and ginger,
Oh, yeah.
and so it had greens, and but I'd bring her that as a snack,
Yes.
and she loved that. And so it's okay for family members to bring over
Absolutely.
a
We
special.
have candy bowls all
Yeah.
over the house, but
Yeah.
it's moderation,
Yeah.
like you said
Yeah.
earlier. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
also you think about what's your intake, high in protein. It's going to help with, skin breakdown
Yeah,
and
exactly.
wound healing,
Wound
things
healing,
like
that's
that.
right.
So, there's definitely correlation between.
And that's another good point about like the boost and the insure and why you don't necessarily want them eating or drinking that, because when you're talking about wound healing for our older patients, or you break a hip or a bone,
Right.
those nutrients that you need, you're not necessarily really going to absorb that from the boost and the insure. You need your, all of your food groups to really help you to get to your optimal health.
You are what you eat.
You are what you eat. It is very
That's right.
true.
Yeah.
You
It
are
is.
what you eat.
Well, and we had a patient, this was several years ago. He came here from Baltimore. He was in a nursing home. His daughter brought him here and knew my dad has more of a quality of life out there than the nursing home is saying.
Yeah.
She brought him to Dallas. He was incontinent. He was diabetic, sliding scale, was
Sorry.
boost morning, noon, and night. Didn't walk.
Yeah.
We got him. It was all about the diet.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
diet and exercise. We got him. We were able to do a program, so we'd take him to the bathroom every couple of
Yes.
hours. We got him off the insulin, and this was a caregiver. This wasn't a nurse. We just worked with the family
Yeah.
too and reversed. So a lot of times these patients or clients that are in these communities, maybe they've been in the hospital, they go to rehab, and they've just gotten into some bad habits.
Yeah.
And you can reverse those. There is hope out there. And working with somebody like Dr. Baylor is so important. What is number one takeaway, would you say, if you could give some advice to adult children of seniors that may be picky eaters?
Okay.
What would you say? What would be some great advice for them?
So one of the things I would say, because we use this with my grandmother sometimes too, is a reward system. So if you know that they prefer the sweets, tell them, okay, I'm going to give you this little portion. If you eat 3/4 of this, then, I'll give you a little, either a piece of candy or whatever that is. So that motivates them. Or if they need to be moving, same kind of thing. Let's get you up to do that. And then just work with them and, throw some of those vegetables in there that they're not going to see. And then that way they're getting it and you don't have to fight with them about trying to eat your vegetables.
I think it's great.
You have been so awesome. We're going to have you back again, and we're going to do a little experiment on spending $25 and kind of like Chopped or whatever. But spend $25 and be able to spread that out with 10 or 12 ingredients. And spread it over several meals and really teaching the caregiver, adult child, private caregiver, how to feed and help provide nutritious meals on a budget, because we're all worried about costs right now.
Absolutely.
And it is expensive to care for our seniors. So, we can't wait to have you back.
I
It'll
can't wait
be
to come
wonderful.
back.
You have been so wonderful.
Thank you.
Just a shout out to Brian. Thank you. Next Thursday, we have a huge pajama event with Pajamas for Seniors at Manchester Place. We're collecting pajamas. We're doing it the COVID-friendly, safe way. It's a drive-through, drop-off pajamas. Our seniors need your support more than ever, and what better than to provide a warm pair of pajamas this holiday season.
And information about the event is on your website.
It's on our website, or info@pajamassforseniors.org. Shanika, how can we get in touch with you?
So you can give me a call for Chefs for Seniors at 469 476-2420.
And Brian, what about you?
ManchesterLiving.com, or call me on my cell phone, 214-649-9922.
And this November is National Family Caregiver Month. Thank you so much for all of those that care for your loved ones. We appreciate you, and keep doing a great job and loving on those seniors. Thank you so much.
Thank you.